The twin sons of Cathara Prime beat down mercilessly on the crimson sands as Jarek Thorn stumbled forward, 3 obsidian-tipped arrows protruding from his chest. Each breath was agony, each step a monument to human stubbornness. Behind him, the war cries of the Vraxian hunters grew fainter, but not faint enough. He'd been warned. The Expeditionary Council had made it clear. Cathara Prime was off-limits. The native Vraxians were classified as pre-contact hostile, their civilization still bound by tribal warfare and blood feuds. But Jarek hadn't listened. The distress beacon from the crashed surveyor pod had been human, and humans didn't leave their own behind. That was the rule. That was the rule. Now, as his vision blurred and his legs gave way, Jarek wondered if dying alone on an alien world was the universe's way of punishing hubris. He collapsed face first into the sand, the impact driving the arrows deeper. Pain exploded through his nervous system, white-hot and absolute. Through the haze, he could hear something approaching small feet. Multiple sets, pattering across the hardened desert floor. Great, he thought bitterly. Scavengers come to finish the job, but the creatures that surrounded him weren't scavengers. They were cubs Vraxian young, barely reaching his waist even as he lay dying. Their fur was still the soft amber of youth, not yet darkened to the deep violet of adult warriors. Large, luminous eyes stared at him with a mixture of curiosity and something that might have been concern. One of them, smaller than the rest, with distinctive white patches around its eyes, crept closer. It chittered something in the musical Vraxian language, and the others responded with uncertain trills. The small one, Niku, Jarek's failing translator implant managed to catch, reached out with delicate, 3-fingered paws, and grasped the shaft of one arrow. Jarek tried to protest, tried to warn the cub away, but all that emerged was a wet gurgle. His lungs were filling with blood. Niku pulled. The arrow came free with a sickening slurp, and Jarek's scream was silent, swallowed by drowning tissue. The cub held the bloody projectile up, examining it with tilted head. Then Niku said something that Jarek's dying brain struggled to process through the translator's static-filled rendering. "Let's return it first." The other cubs chittered in agreement, a chorus of youthful voices making a decision that defied everything xenoanthropologists thought they knew about Vraxian culture. These were the children of warriors who had just tried to kill him. By every logical metric, they should have finished what their parents started, or simply left him to die. Instead, they huddled around him. Small paws pressed against his wounds with surprising gentleness. One cub produced a water skin and dribbled liquid against his cracked lips. Another began digging in the sand, creating a depression that would shield him from the brutal suns. Niku, still holding the arrow, looked toward the direction the hunters had gone, then back at Jarek, then at the arrow again. "Return it," Niku repeated, and this time Jarek understood. Not return the arrow to his chest, return it to the ones who had shot it. Return violence with accountability. Return cruelty with evidence of what had been done. His translator implant caught fragments of their conversation as consciousness slipped away. "Elder father will be angry. Don't care. This is wrong. Mother teaches honor is not just for our kind. He came looking for someone, just like we would." Jarek felt himself being moved, felt the careful coordination of small bodies working together to drag his considerable human bulk across the sand. They were taking him somewhere. Somewhere safer, somewhere with shade and water and possibly hope. The next thing he remembered was waking to the sound of shouting. Adult Vraxian voices, harsh and accusatory, clashing with the higher pitches of cubs defending their actions. He forced his eyes open to see Niku standing between him and a massive Vraxian warrior. The bloodied arrow held up like a prosecutor's evidence. The warrior, massive, scarred, with fur the color of deep space, stared at the arrow, then at Jarek, then back at Niku. The cub spoke rapidly, gesturing emphatically, and the other cubs joined in, a chorus of youthful defiance. Jarek's translator caught the gist. He came for his own, just like you would. Just like Mother did when the sky fire took Father's brother. Honor isn't species-specific. You taught us that. The warrior's expression shifted through a dozen emotions Jarek couldn't fully read. Finally, with a sound that might have been a sigh or a growl, the Vraxian knelt, placed one massive paw over its heart, spoke words that even through the translator's distortion carried weight. "The cubs shame us. They see clearer than warriors blinded by fear of the unknown. Telm. More Vraxians appeared, healers, Jarek realized, as they began working on his wounds with efficiency that spoke of advanced medical knowledge. One of them, an elder with silver-frosted fur, leaned close and spoke in surprisingly clear standard. "Your kind, you do not abandon your own, even at cost of life. This is known to us now. The little ones, they understand honor better than their battle-scarred parents." Niku appeared in Jarek's limited field of vision, still clutching that arrow. The cub's large eyes met his, and for a moment, species didn't matter. Sapience recognized sapience. Courage recognized courage. "Keep it," Jarek managed to whisper. "Reminder that children, often wiser than adults." Niku chittered a sound that needed no translation. It was laughter, pure and bright and universal. 3 weeks later, when the human rescue team finally arrived at coordinates transmitted by the Vraxians themselves, they found Jarek alive, healing, and teaching a group of Vraxian cubs how to play poker with rocks and sticks. Niku had appointed themselves as his permanent translator, and, as the cub proudly announced, his honor guardian. The Expedition Council would later document this as first peaceful contact with the Vraxians. Xenoanthropologists would write papers about the role of youth in breaking down interspecies barriers. Diplomats would establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges. But Jarek knew the truth. Humanity hadn't impressed the Vraxians with technology or strength, or even stubbornness. They'd been saved by something simpler and more profound, the recognition that some values transcend species, and sometimes it takes the clarity of youth to see that honor, compassion, and the refusal to abandon one's own are universal languages. He kept that arrow too, mounted in his quarters alongside a holophoto of a small Vraxian cub with white patches around its eyes. Beneath it, a plaque read, "Returned with interest, Niku, first friend," because that's what humans do. They remember, they honor, and they never, ever forget who stood with them when arrows found their chest and the sand waited to swallow them whole. Humanity? Fuck yeah.